So is football coming home? It is the final two-man wall of Euro 2020, Euro 2021, whatever you want to call it, with Johnny Ward and Adam Russell. But Jonathan Wilson, who was such a hit before the tournament when he came on the two-man wall, is back. And today we will go through the final between England and Italy. We'll also have a special montage at the end of all the lovely Star Sports personalities giving their views on the final. And we'll tell you as well how you can win a grand free bet with a few questions, yes or no questions and answers before the final. Let's get straight to it, though. England versus Italy. Jonathan Wilson, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. A bit tired, as you tend to be at this stage of a tournament, but yeah, I've been enjoying it.
Not the conventional tournament for you, whereas you may have been at a scatter of games. You've been at a handful this time.
Yeah, I didn't manage to make a single group game because of various bits of COVID-related nonsense and bureaucracy. But I've actually been really lucky with the game since then. I was at that Sweden-Ukraine game in the last 16, the game up in Glasgow. Then went out to Munich for Italy v Belgium. Then was at the England-Denmark game. And assuming all goes well and UEFA do process the accreditation request, I'll be at the final on Sunday.
What was the semi-final atmosphere like?
Oh, brilliant. I mean, I don't want to say it was a better atmosphere than those I've been in, but it was a very different atmosphere. And it occurred to me that the reason that you get these atmospheres at national team games when things are going well is that 80-90% of the stadium is supporting the same team. So it's not like a cup final where, the pre-match stuff, they've got to be very careful what they play because, if it's Liverpool v Manchester United, let's say, you play a Liverpool song, you're just going to get half the ground booing. If you play a Manchester United song, you get half the ground booing. Whereas if you're just playing, Atomic Kitten or Neil Diamond, and you have this bizarre sight of sort of 50, 60,000 people joining this mass sing-along, these sort of huge, shaven-headed, middle-aged men singing along to Atomic Kitten is, it's quite a bizarre sight. And of course, the Danes, they don't care. They've got nothing against Neil Diamond, so they happily sing along as well.
Nobody has anything against Neil Diamond, to be
honest. I was going to say, no one's ever booed through Caroline, no matter who you support.
Are you even old enough to remember Atomic Kitten, Adam Russell?
I don't remember Atomic Kitten particularly being very prevalent in my lifetime. So it might have been a little bit before my time. But I remember the song existing at some point during my childhood. But yeah, wasn't a massive Atomic Kitten fan in my younger days, I must say.
You're also so young that you've gotten over your hangover from watching the game the other night, whereas at my age you're still hungover the following morning. So you look fresh and happy.
I don't know. I've only just got over the hangover from Saturday's game. I'm not sure I'm actually over the hangover from Wednesday's game yet. But yeah, it's been a great experience, obviously being an England fan and finally sort of getting to the end of a tournament and kind of win or lose now. At least we've had that experience and we've broken the duck, and it's just going to be a really great occasion for us to be a part of on Sunday, I think.
Exactly, yeah. And we'll go through as well briefly the ins and outs of what Star Sports has laid, what's a good and a bad result. But just briefly, Jonathan, this has been a really enjoyable tournament. I think that's the attitude in Ireland anyway. Obviously, we're watching it without having involvement. But I guess the Spain-Italy game, the day of the 2-3 draws, there was just a lot of positives and crowds back at games as well.
Oh, it's been an incredible tournament. I think maybe the best tournament of my lifetime, which I certainly wasn't expecting going into it. I thought this. I think it's been obvious that over the last decade, international football has become very divorced from the club game, and it's become much more static, much more about solidity, far less about the high press, which we used to the last stage of the Champions League, games being frenetic and very chaotic and huge swings, which is I think. The nature of high pressing football is very it's very high risk, and international football for various reasons hasn't gone down that route, largely because the coaches don't have the players together for long enough, so they go for a more cautious approach. And you think back to Euro 2016, I thought was a dreadful tournament. It was a really boring, sterile tournament. Euro 2012 wasn't great. The World Cup in 2014 I thought was poor. World Cup in 2010 was poor. World Cup in 2018 there was a little uptick. And it turns out that maybe was some part of a general change in international football. But the other thing I thought was that I expected this tournament maybe to be a bit like the World Cup in 2002, with players being exhausted. So in 2002, I don't know if you remember, they moved. It was the first season when they had 2 group stages in the Champions League. So there's that category of elite level player was suddenly playing. In the Champions League, they're playing 12 group games rather than 6. So, okay, a couple fewer knockout games, but essentially adding an extra 4 or 5 games to their schedule. Plus, the World Cup was moved forward by 2 weeks because of the rainy season in Asia. So it started on the 31st of May, and players you could see they were shattered in that tournament. And I expected, given the compressed nature of the season just gone because of COVID, that something similar might happen. But there's been none of that. It's been an incredibly adventurous attacking tournament. There's been some incredible games. I mean, you mentioned the 2-3-3s, and they were great games in terms of the drama. But then you get games like the first semi-final. I think that's just, in terms of quality, I can't remember ever having seen a knockout game in national football of that level. The Italy-Belgium game was an incredible level of football. So I think it's been almost despite itself, because I think the format of the tournament doesn't really work. I don't like 4 best third place teams going through, and yet that produced great drama on that final evening with Hungary nearly putting Germany out and the France-Portugal game. So I think it's been incredibly exciting, incredible drama throughout, and actually a pretty high level of football as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that you went through like 4 or 5 tournaments, summer tournaments, without really enjoying them. I think your point about the players' fatigue, I feel Liverpool have really been hurt in that regard. Mane this season looks like, I think it's his first summer off since 2017 or something. And I think, Salah had spells as well where he didn't get any break really in football for like 2 or 3 years, and he probably needed like last summer's off season to energize himself. But in any event, Adam, let's reflect on the betting situation, because this was a tournament we spoke up Italy at the start. As the tournament went on, I thought France were probably the most likely winners. How is it looking in terms of liabilities at the moment?
Well, I think you weren't alone, certainly, in thinking that France were the team to beat. The market was very much reflective of that. Kind of even 6 months out from the tournament, France were always kind of very strong favourites. For us at Star, France and Belgium were the big losers pre-tournament. That's obviously changed as the tournament's gone on. At one point, Italy were quite big losers in the book, and they're starting out. They started out the tournament only as slight losers, and the book has sort of changed as we've gone on. We laid England at 9-4 yesterday, which makes them small losers in the book now, and it's sort of come full circle with Italy now as slight winners in the book. So the traders will be leaning towards the Italians for sure. In the outright market, in the Golden Boot market, the traders are really keen to get Ronaldo beat if they can. He was very popular pre-tournament, and actually Harry Kane's a much more preferable option for them with the Golden Boot now. They also laid Sterling at 6-1 and 7-1 in the player of the tournament market. He started out at 25-1 pre-tournament, and he's now been backed in all the way into 7-4 favourite. So that's another one that they'd be keen to get beat. They also laid Sterling at 9-2 for the top England scorer. He's now into 5-2 in that market. So they could probably do with him not scoring again. And Harry Kane would be a much more preferred goal scorer all round for the guys in the trading room on Sunday.
Very briefly, what was the take on the penalty? Because Didi Hamann was on Irish television and he completely went off on one in front of what was like a record TV audience, or certainly a record in some respects, a huge TV audience, said that England had benefited from diving. Now I thought there was contact, I thought it was soft, but what was the view over there?
I certainly think that if you take a still frame of the incident, then you can potentially make a case for Sterling throwing himself to the ground, or maybe trying to initiate the contact. But if you watch it at full speed, the players come in from two sides, and he's sandwiched between the two defenders, and there's no way that he can stay on his feet. Whether or not it's a penalty is all, I guess, down to the ref's discretion. But for me at the time, I thought it was a penalty. I've watched it back and I still think it was a penalty. And as much of the Danes can kind of complain that it potentially wasn't a penalty, the free kick that led to their goal was incredibly soft as well. So these things go full.
Jonathan, it was one of the very few controversial VAR instances in the tournament, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the stadium. I was right down at the other end. So this was happening, I don't know, 150, 180 yards away from me, with obviously players in the way. So at the time, I had absolutely I had no idea if it was a penalty or not. And and I won't bore you with UEFA's inadequacies, for some reason in the press box in the tournament, we get the feed that goes on the big screen. And I normally would get the broadcast feed, But what that means is, if it's a goal or something, it doesn't really matter. We still see loads of replays, but they don't show controversial incidents on the big screen for obvious reasons. So we didn't get a replay of that. So
that is so ridiculous. Like that's
ludicrous. It's completely
so you're
ludicrous.
really being punished for being a journalist at the game.
Yeah, exactly. So I had no idea. I saw all the discussion of it, and I was trying to find clips on Twitter, which obviously UEFA kind of playing whack-a-mole, trying to kind of get rid of. So I'd read all this stuff about it was a clear dive, blah blah blah. I'd see what Didi Hamann said, and so when I actually went back to the following day and played the game through again, I was expecting some horrendous dive. And what I saw was a thing that is given every week in the Premier League. It's just a foul. I mean, it's a little bit soft. But Myler comes across and Sterling sort of goes to his left to get out of the way of that, which he has to do. There's a nudge on the sort of outside of his right knee. Now, if he had just gone down because of that, then I think, you probably would say he's manufactured that and he is looking for that. But then you've got Jensen comes across on his left, who smashes into his hip. I'm bewildered that that's even a debate. I just think maybe football would be a better game if that wasn't given as a penalty, but it's literally given all the time. And certainly once it's been given, VAR will never overturn that. Now, perhaps if it hadn't been given, VAR wouldn't have gone back and given the penalty. But I think if that had happened, England would have been pretty annoyed by that because he's essentially been clipped twice. But anyway, my sort of feeling about the game at that point was with him and Grealish both constantly running into the box. And you could see, because Grealish in the second half of normal time was on the wing just in front of me. And you saw again and again, when he got the ball, his first reaction was get into the box, then stop and check and look up.
Yeah.
And I was sort of, I remember turning to a Guardian colleague and saying, England will win this with a penalty. And he was like, yeah, you can see the Danes are knackered. One of them is going to lunge into a challenge eventually. And England have got players running at the pace. This has got penalty written all over.
This is why we love Jonathan Wilson on the show, Adam. He's telling us stuff that he said before the event, after the event. But because it is Jonathan Wilson, I actually completely believe him. And Denmark were so tired. This is my debate with the Irish people who were saying, England got lucky with the penalty. Denmark were so tired that these things happen. You put players in the box, instances happen and penalties are given, and essentially the better team won.
Yeah, I think so. Go on.
Sorry, go on. I think it's something that we'll see potentially in the final. I think obviously these big games can be such an occasion and the build-up can be so frantic and it can be so much for a players in terms of the adrenaline that can be rushing through people's body that kind of 60 minutes can really be a real cut-off point. And after that, start to see some real tired legs. Obviously, both sides played extra time in the semi-final as well. So tiredness could be a factor. And I was going to bring it back to Sterling just because I don't think I've ever seen Sterling play better than he played on Wednesday night, particularly with the way he carried the ball in the second half and in extra time. It's not something we see him do a great deal of in the Man City team. They don't really run with the ball as a general rule of thumb, but the way even in extra time, he picked up the ball and was able to just put the burners on. He made some of the Danish defenders just look very, very average. And I think it's the best I've seen Sterling play. And for me, the player of the tournament so far.
Yeah, that's why he's a short price. Let's talk about the yes/no competition. Your chance, free entry to win $1,000, Adam.
Yeah, £1,000 up for grab for the final special showpiece competition. It's absolutely free to enter over at Star Sports. It takes 2 minutes. All you got to do is answer 10 really simple yes or no questions on the game, and whoever gets the best selection will win £1,000 free bet. As we say, we've got a series of £20, 21 bonus prizes to give out to a few runners up, and as I say, it's absolutely free to play over at the starsports.bet website.
Let's talk about the game now, and for principally, I suppose the odds 2-1 Italy, 2-1 to draw, 11-10 England. So England fairly heavy favourites. A winner of the tie, 4-5 England, even money Italy. Let's start with you, Jonathan. How is this going to go tactically? How is it going to go if these teams get tired in the second half? If Italy take the lead, how is the game going to go? What do you see happening?
Well, I think the big question for Gareth Southgate, as it has been actually in front of before every game, is does he go with the back three or does he go with the back four? Now, my suspicion is, and I talk myself into both options depending which time of day you catch me. But at the moment, I'm leaning towards a back three. Now, if you think back to the basically two teams have troubled Italy in this tournament. One is Spain in the semi-final, who played a 4-3-3, but England can't play like Spain. England just, although they've improved, they're just not as good on the ball as Spain. So, I sort of think in some ways the lessons you can draw from that game are limited. I think more interesting thing is the Austria game. And England clearly have a better team than Austria. They have better players in Austria. But the Austrian shape, they played a back three, and Italy found that hard to break down. And I think there's a couple of things there. So first of all, Insigne is Italy's best creative player, certainly the creative player they play through the most, in the forward third. So if you've got a back three, you've got Kyle Walker right on him in that space. He likes to come in off a wing into. So I think that's a really valuable position to have a player starting from. So I think that helps to block them up. They attack far more down the left, Italy, than they do down the right. And Spinazzola particularly was, I think was the best left back in the tournament until he got the injury. Now, Emerson Palmieri, I thought had a good game in the semi-final, but his link up with Insigne is not as good, just because they haven't played together as much. But still, I think they attack 24% more down the left than the right. So you then have two options when you have an attacking fullback like that. Do you play a wing back up against him and try and meet him as high pitch as possible and just stop him getting forward? Or do you put a winger in behind him and say, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to do some defending? Or are you going to just leave Saka or Sancho or whoever in that space? Now, I think your answer to that question depends on how you think possession will go. Now, against Germany, Southgate obviously looked at the German midfield with Kroos, and he might have thought Gundogan or Goretzka, plus Thomas Müller, plus Kai Havertz dropping deep. And he thought, yeah, there's a good chance Germany will dominate possession. Therefore, we have to be more conservative. Therefore, we'll play with the back three. It's slightly different than the Germany play with the back three, so it's just matching them shape for shape. Against Ukraine, Southgate looked at that midfield of Stepanenko and Sidorchuk and Zinchenko. Those Sidorchuk in the end ended up not playing. And he thought, well, it's fine, we'll dominate possession here. So we'll cause them a problem. We'll put wingers behind their wing backs and we'll make the wing backs defend. And if you compare how the Ukrainian wing backs played against Sweden to how they played against England, against Sweden, they were brilliant, constantly pushing forward, constantly interchanging. That was where all their attacking came through. Against England, they just weren't an attacking threat because they were constantly having to defend. So the gamble worked there. It was almost not a gamble, it worked so well. Against Denmark, it worked for most of the game. There's that quarter of an hour period in the middle of the first half where England came under pressure a bit, that Delaney and Højbjerg started pressing a bit higher. And you saw Milo and Stigo on the right starting to advance, starting to cause England problems. But the first quarter of an hour of the game, and from the Denmark goal onwards, even in the second half of extra time, although by then England had gone to the back three, but certainly till half-time extra time, England, by having the wingers, Sterling and then Saka and then Grealish, caused some huge amounts of problems, and the wing-backs weren't really an attacking threat. But against Italy, if you think how well their midfielders performed, Jorginho got a pass completion rate of 92% in the tournament, plus Verratti, plus Barella. I'm not sure you can trust England to dominate possession. And therefore, I think you have to take the more conservative approach and play with the wing-backs. Now, that might mean it's a slightly cagey, cautious, awkward game. And it probably also means Mason Mount being used on the right of the attacking three. And his job will be, yes, to create, but also to try and stop Emerson getting forward. Yeah.
Follow that, Adam Russell.
Well, not to argue with the great Jonathan Wilson, but I'm gonna try and make an argument for playing a back four. I've been back and I've watched the Spain game, and as you said, Jonathan, it was a really, really high quality game, probably the best of the tournament, and it was very tactical. And the way that Spain went about it was to try and overload the Italian midfield, and particularly try and isolate Jorginho. Obviously, the big selection decision was to drop Alvaro Morata in replace of Dani Olmo, who obviously played more as a false nine, and he would drop into midfield and was a real problem for Jorginho. They also had Pedri on the left-hand side, who drifted inside to drag Federico Chiesa inside, which created an overload down the left-hand side for Jordi Alba and Ferran Torres, which is where the Spanish got in time and time again. And it just meant between Pedri and Olmo that Jorginho was constantly 2v1 in that midfield battle. And I think it could be something, maybe with Mount operating as a 10 and trying to drop in and create those overloads in midfield and create a problem for Jorginho. Or like you say, maybe a Saka, as England did with when they played in the back five, was a very narrow front three, which allowed the wing backs to get forward and provide the width. So we could see that again, but I think potentially a Saka on the left with a Shaw and a Mount, and in particular Harry Kane maybe dropping it into a kind of a false nine role to collect possession, will maybe just create the overloads that we need for Shaw and Saka down that left-hand side. The other thing that I think was a problem for England, more so in the Germany game than in the Denmark game, but was just reorganizing themselves in transitions. It's something, getting back into our defensive shit. I think we maybe struggled with that more in a 5 than we did in a 4, particularly in midfield. I think the midfield two weren't quite sure where to set themselves in midfield. And I just have a feeling that Southgate's going to put an extra body in that midfield just to try and match up the Italians. But yeah, I think it is a coin toss for me.
That's fascinating stuff, lads. And just in terms of the correct score, Jonathan, what are you looking at here? 6-1, Italy 1-0, 0-all is 11-2, 1-0 England is 11-2, 2-0 Italy 12-1, 1-all draw is 21-4, England 2-0 at 10-1, which I think is slightly tempting. I really don't see England not scoring here. As much as their record is amazing, I think this Italian defence isn't actually that great.
Yeah, I mean the other issue with the Italian defence is they're weirdly not very good in the air. And that sounds ridiculous when you think of Bonucci and Chiellini. Certainly Chiellini, you wouldn't fancy an aerial battle against. But I think Italy have won the third least aerial duels, but proportionally, of anybody in the tournament. Whereas England, I don't know, they're 5th or 6th. They're way over 50%. And even against Denmark, who a physically big team, I think England still won 52% of headers. So I think set plays, which obviously something Southgate really values, I think they have a potential avenue for England. Harry Maguire won. So there was a period in the second half when he won 3 headers in a row from free kicks or corners, one of which brought that great save from Schmeichel. There's another header in extra time he won. So I think he's going to be a big threat. I can't see it being high scoring. So yeah, I mean, I suspect there's no value at all in under 2.5 goals, but I suspect there won't be more than 2.5 goals. So if you asked me just to pick a score that I thought would be without looking at the odds, without looking at value, I'd probably say 1-1, and it's go one way or the other in extra time, which is what, 21-4? Did you say?
21-4, it's the shortest price, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that what the Spanish did quite well against the Italians, they asked them to make a lot of play, and I don't think that's necessarily the Italian strength, is having a lot of possession. I think they spent a lot of time recycling it around the back through Bonucci and Chiellini. And I think obviously their strength really is on the counter attack when there's space in front of them for their strikers to run into. I wouldn't be surprised whether we go with a 4 or a 5 at the back to see the Italians have a lot of the ball, England to sit quite deep in their block and ask them to kind of break them down, very much as we did against Germany for 70 minutes. And then Southgate will try and bring on some of the quality that we do have on the bench with Grealish and Foden and Sancho and Rashford, etc. Got so many options to come on and change the game late on. So yeah, I'd be inclined to, it's surely going to be a low scorer. I think 1-1 is a good shot. I think 0-0 equally could be a good shot. It doesn't strike me as a game where England are going to take the handbrake off at all. So yeah, I think 0-0 at 11-2 is not a bad shout. But if I'm going to look at, I'm going to put my England shirt on, I think maybe 1-0 England, 11-2, potentially a late second half goal, a goal from a set piece, as you say, Jonathan. But yeah, definitely a low scorer.
Well, I think that point I think that point you make about substitutes is a key one. That England have greater strength and depth than anybody else in the tournament. I mean, France maybe, but obviously France are gone, and so there's no incentive for England to win the game in the first hour. The deeper it goes, the better England's chance. You saw that against Denmark. The Denmark I mean, after about an hour, they looked knackered. But then they made all those substitutions, which notably weakened the team. Now, I understand them taking Dolberg off for Poulsen, that Poulsen was the first choice at the beginning of the tournament. I think he holds the ball up a bit better than Dolberg. Maybe isn't such a natural goal scorer. But when they took Damsgaard off, and they went to, rather than a 3-4-3, it was more sort of 5-3-2. And whatever threat they'd had just vanished. And as soon as that happened, you sort of thought, within 5 minutes of that happening, you sort of saw how the shape of the game, dynamic of the game had changed.
Damsgaard was real key, wasn't he, with the runs? He made so many, time and time again, the third man runs he was making in behind was so dangerous to us. I think that was their main threat, and maybe something the Italians will look to expose as well, potentially.
Yeah, and once he'd gone, I just couldn't see how Denmark could win other than on penalties. And if you can get in that situation in the game, then you're in a great position, because you then can just run at the box and wait for a penalty to be given.
Yeah, well, England have genuinely world-class players that aren't starting, and they're itching to get on. And when they come on, they change the dynamic of what they attack, often against the tiring defence. Well, any other bets you like, Adam?
I think I'd be looking again at a Harry Kane goal scorer option here. I think he's going to, set pieces are obviously going to be a big one. We could end up with another penalty on our hands. I think Kane goal scorer. Again, if we're looking at set pieces, you're looking at Maguire, like you say, Jonathan. The amount of that is his great strength, obviously, and I think that's why our back three works so well. Is we have Maguire, who is so dominant in both boxes aerially. We've got Walker, who I thought was superb on Wednesday night, covering in behind. He was our last line of defence so often on Wednesday night, and obviously Stones being so calm and composed on the ball. I think that back three, we've got, the makings of a world-class centre-half. It's just a shame that they're split between three different footballers. So, yeah, I think, maybe Maguire goal anytime. You get reasonably good odds on that from a set piece, potentially. So, yeah, that's another angle.
Who wins?
Oh, I mean, my heart says England, but my head says Italy, because I do think the Italians are the best team in the tournament. I think we've probably got the strongest squad out of the two. But I think the Italians are the best team left in the tournament.
I think they were probably the fourth or fifth best team at the start. I think Spain were certainly better than them. Jonathan, Spain aren't here. Italy and England are. Who will be here lifting the trophy afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I agree entirely with Adam. I think it'll be very, very close. But that, if England are pretty much half the price that Italy are, then back Italy all the way. For what feels like a 50-50 call, maybe even slightly in Italy's favour. Italy 2-1 seems. You did say 2-1, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that seems great value to me. That's 2-1 to win in 90 minutes, is it?
It is indeed.
Yeah, so whether you go with that or whether you go with them just to lift the trophy.
I'm gonna put the words Adam. I agree with Adam on my gravestone.
yeah. His grave will be beside you. But hopefully football won't be in the grave at that stage. Jonathan and Adam, it's been great fun having you on.
Thank you, mate. Hopefully look out for some more selections from the Star Sports crew after this as well.
Well, here we go. This is a beautiful montage of some of the Star Sports personalities calling it. Will it be England? Will it be Italy? Check out the website and the microsite for all our special offers and that ability to win a grand.
Just 24 hours after these traps open for the final of the Star Sports English Greyhound Derby, the action switches to Wembley for England in the Euros Champions Final. We predicting England to win 2-1.
Hi, my name's Grant Easton, manager of Star Sports on Tower Bridge Road. I'm going to go for England 2-0 despite the accent. Good luck, boys.
From the Curragh Racecourse in Ireland, Blue Horseshoe loves a 1-1 draw.
Hi, I'm Jess Troney. I've been working on content at Star throughout Euro 2020, and although I'd love to see England do it on Sunday, I've just got this feeling that Italy are going to be far too strong for us. 2-1 to Italy is my bet for Sunday's Euro 2020 final.
Hi, I'm Willie Vijani. I've done match previews with my good friend Joe Ciccone, and I'm afraid to say I don't think it's coming home. I think it's coming Rome. Italy to win Euro 2020 is my bet.
Julie Collier and I'm a contributor to the content at Star Sports. Really looking forward to the match on Sunday night. I think it's going to be 1-1 after 90 minutes. I think we're going to be put through the mill with penalties and it will come home, but 1-1 after 90 minutes.
Hi, I'm Ben from the Kingswood Shop and I reckon the score will be 2-1 to England. It's coming home.
Hi guys, Jess Packer, spread betting trader, 1-0 England, dodgy pen, Harry Kane. That's how winning is done. It's coming home.
Matt Davis, head of retail. 2-2 in 90 minutes with England nicking it in extra time. Come on, boys.
My name's Lennox from the New Orleans shop. My prediction for Sunday is 2-0 England. Come on, England!
England are going to win 2-1 to Italy.
Na, na, na. Na, na, na.